I discovered the box on a Tuesday, which I'm sure some might describe as either fate or destiny, but I have my own explanation. It wasn't some cosmic event bestowing a gift upon me. It was my grandma's arthritis acting up that morning, causing her to have me get her old photo albums from the storage room instead of her ascending the steep staircase. "Bottom shelf, Annie," she'd instructed, her hands twisted around her teacup. "Behind the Christmas ornaments." I usually steered clear of the storage room. It was kind of an understood thing in our house. My mother kept it locked, and my sisters, Sophia and Elizabeth, never had any reason to sift through old, unwanted stuff. But Grandma Rose had a key, and now I did too. The wooden box wasn't big or fancy, nothing you'd immediately notice. But when I lifted a dusty tarp to access the photo albums, there it was, right where it shouldn't be, concealed yet somehow expecting me. The carved lid depicted connected branches like a family tree. I probably should have simply taken the photo albums and left. However, I opened the box instead. Within were photo albums, but they weren't the ones Grandma had requested. These were carefully arranged, ordered by date with dates and events meticulously noted. Sophia's dance recitals, Elizabeth's soccer championships, their graduations, prize presentations, holidays. I looked through one, then another, and another. 23 years of family memories meticulously recorded. And I wasn't in a single photo. At first, I was convinced there had to be an error. I figured it could have been a compilation showcasing my sister's successes. But the more I looked, I found family updates, greeting cards, travel reports, all those times I should have been there, recognized, included. But I wasn't. Where I should have been, there was nothing. I'd been cut out of group photos. My name was nowhere to be seen in the descriptions of events. My mother's yearly newsletters to relatives barely acknowledged me, if at all. Annie babysat the little ones, while my sister's accomplishments were emphasized in big, bold letters. 23 years of being deliberately excluded. My hands were trembling as I kept finding more evidence that I didn't exist. Vacation pictures where I'd been the one taking them. School activities where I had earned prizes that went undocumented. Even my high school graduation, it only had one photo of me looking lifeless, tucked away in an envelope that said, "Various." Are those the things? I startled at my grandmother's voice, almost dropping the box. She was at the door, leaning on her cane, and her eyes weren't on the albums but on me. "I didn't know," I whispered, my voice soft. "I didn't know they were doing this." Grandma Rose's face was neutral. It didn't surprise her. "You weren't meant to." "How long?" I asked, suddenly filled with anger. "How long have they been?" "Erasing me?" She finished my thought, then let out a big sigh. "Considering you were promising, because you were better than Sophia in that art contest when you were 8 years old." The recollection hit me like a ton of bricks. The blue ribbon, my mom's strained grin, the painting suddenly gone from my room the following day. I'd assumed I'd simply lost it. "Why?" The query seemed to bounce around the confined storage space. "Because your mother can't handle someone else shining," Grandma Rose revealed, "and Sophia is just like her." I glanced down at the box, at the falsehoods cultivated over many years, and felt something within me shift and change. It wasn't crumbling, it was solidifying. "They can't do this to me," I declared, and it barely sounded like my own voice. Grandma Rose observed me for a lengthy period. "No," she said at last, concurring with me, "they can't, not anymore." The proof was everywhere once I learned to look for it. During the following week, I rummaged through the storage area when my mother was at her job, and my sisters were occupied with their daily routines. I came across financial documents demonstrating that my college fund had been diverted to Sophia's Unique Chances Fund. I located my mother's planner notebooks, filled with notations like divert conversation from A's scholarship and postpone gallery trip clashing with S's concert. It's the emails I found on an old laptop that really hurt the most. They contained messages between my mom and Sophia as they plotted ways to guarantee my availability to look after my younger cousins during a family gathering that was happening at the same time as an art professor. A crucial one, who might have offered me an internship, was attending. My mother had written, "Annie's always so willing to help with the kids." She went on, "We'll spring it on her at the last possible moment that we need her to babysit." Sophia had responded, "Excellent. That Marcus from the gallery kept bringing up her art. We need to stop that." Marcus, the curator who'd shown some interest in my portfolio last year and then vanished. The chance I'd been informed had dissolved. As I put the laptop back where I found it, my hands were shaking. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was planned, very deliberate, a planned effort to keep me obscure. I reflected on all those family get-togethers where I'd been banished to the kitchen. The school events my parents had claimed they were too busy to go to. The awards I'd earned that were never showcased alongside my sister's accolades. The most difficult discovery came 3 days later when I found a hidden notebook in my mother's dresser. Within it were rough drafts of the Christmas letters she sent out every year. These letters showed edits in her very neat handwriting. Annie has been accepted to the San Francisco Institute of Fine Arts with a partial scholarship. The updated line now stated, Annie still assists with household chores and is thinking about taking some classes at the local community college. I had never even considered applying to SFIA. My mom had always told me it was too costly, too far away, and the admissions process was too intense, and I had completely bought into her explanation. They certainly go in depth, Grandma Rose said as I showed her the document. We were in her tiny room in the back of the house, the only place I felt like I could be myself without being watched. I'll give them that much. How could they do this to me? I questioned, the thought that had been constantly swirling in my head for days. How could they methodically remove me from the picture? Grandma's face revealed the first genuine feeling I'd seen since I made the discovery, a mixture of sorrow and acceptance. Your mother remembers everything, she stated. Every instance of manipulation, every carefully planned insult. She learned it by watching your grandfather, but she refined it. She made it into her own form of art. She reached out and took my hand, her frail skin feeling cold against mine. She's been doing it her whole life, controlling the story, making sure she and her preferred family members are the main focus. So what am I, the backup player, the crew member? You're the danger, Grandma Rose replied matter-of-factly. You always have been. You possess what Sophia desperately desires and what your mother prioritizes more than anything else. And that is real talent, being true to yourself, the ability to make something truly meaningful. She held my hand tighter. That's what scares them. Her words resonated within me, and I felt their impact settle deep inside me. The feeling wasn't sadness, it was something far more intense. I'm finished, I declared. I'm no longer staying unnoticed. Grandma Rose gave a slow nod. I was expecting you to realize this eventually. I've been anticipating this moment. She reached under her bed and pulled out a small, unfamiliar lockbox. She then took out a bank book and a set of keys from inside. What is this all about? This is for your safety, she responded. I've been secretly saving money for you. It's not a large sum, but enough to get you started. And I have a small apartment available located above an old friend's cafe in the city center. It has been vacant. She put the keys into my hand. It's time for you to have your own place to be creative. I looked at her, a realization slowly hitting me. You knew what they were doing to me all along. She didn't react negatively to my statement. I knew, and I made arrangements. I was powerless to stop them. Your mother has complete control in this family. However, I could arrange an exit strategy for when you were ready. Later that night, I lay in bed, looking at the ceiling. The bank book and keys were hidden under my mattress. I'd spent 23 years gradually being erased from my own family's life, like a mark that wasn't wanted on the surface. It was finally my turn to reclaim my own image, using vibrant colors that couldn't be ignored. The Friday night family meal seemed ordinary at first glance. Mom was at the table's head, looking flawless in her cashmere and pearls. Sophia was talking about her latest success at the architecture company, where she'd quickly moved up to a management position. Elizabeth was home from college for the weekend, acting like the good middle child. Dad was nodding at suitable times, his attention divided between his dinner and his phone. I sat there silently, almost invisible, passing food and refilling water glasses. Annie, Mom said as dessert was brought out. Aunt Carol phoned earlier. She's going to that charity event next month and needs a babysitter for the twins. I told her you would be glad to do it. My sisters shared a quick look, so fast I almost didn't see it if I hadn't been watching them. The charity gala, where Marcus, the gallery curator, would be displaying new artists. The gallery curator who had suddenly stopped contacting me. No, I stated. The word just sat there in the air, so surprising that no one said anything for a second. Mom's fork was stopped halfway to her mouth. "Pardon me," she said. The way she said it implied I had gotten something wrong and not that I had declined. "I will not be watching the kids that night." I carefully placed my napkin on the table. "I won't be the easy babysitter anymore." Elizabeth looked uneasy, looking from me to Mom. Sophia's eyes tightened. My mom spoke, and that gentle sound she used for the simple things, like when she explained how to tie my shoes, filled the air. "Annie, your aunt needs you. That's what family does." "Really?" I thought, reaching into my pocket to grab that early draft of the Christmas letter that I'd stumbled upon, and I put it on the table. "Is that really what family is supposed to do, support one another?" My mother's expression didn't change, although her fingers tightened around her fork, making her knuckles white. "What is that?" she asked. "It's the first version of last year's Christmas letter, before you decided to take away my scholarship," I explained. "I have no idea what you're talking about," she responded, but then she glanced quickly at my dad, who was suddenly listening. "What scholarship?" he asked, intrigued. I paid him no mind, continuing to concentrate on my mother. "I found the box," I told her, "and I found the emails, and the financial records that show how my college money was moved to Sophia's account for special opportunities." Sophia's face turned red. "You were looking through our personal belongings, our private letters and such." "Like you checked my mail when Marcus sent me that invitation," I shot back. "The one I never actually got." My mom put her fork down on the plate with a loud noise. "Annie, you're being absurd. If you've been rummaging through old stuff and thinking you were mistreated." "I'm not just making this up," I stated, and even I was taken aback by how calm I sounded. "I have proof, a whole bunch of it. You meticulously wrote it all down." "What is she talking about?" my dad asked, and he gave my mother a confused look. Before she could reply, I kept talking. "Did you know, Dad, that I got into the San Francisco Institute of Fine Arts, and with a scholarship, no less? Or that Marcus from the Urban Arts Gallery wanted to exhibit my art in his show for new artists last year?" My father appeared completely baffled. "You never told me." "Because they kept it from her," Grandma Rose said from the entrance. She was standing there with her cane, a quiet observer I hadn't anticipated. "They made sure she wouldn't know." The silence that hung in the air was really heavy. My mother was the first to get her act together, her usual demeanor returning like she put on a mask. "Mother, please don't play along with Annie's theatrics. She's upset about something, so she's just venting." "I'm not upset," I said, and as the words left my mouth, I knew it was true. "I'm awake now, and I'm finished being ignored." I stood feeling like I could float. "I won't be babysitting the twins on the night of the gala. I'll be going as Marcus's guest. My art will be in the silent auction." The expression of pure shock on Sophia's face made the past week of misery worthwhile. "You couldn't have possibly," she started to say. "But I did," I interrupted her. "It turns out when you quit interfering with someone's mail, they actually can get chances that come their way." I turned to go but stopped at the door. "And I'm moving out tonight." I went up the stairs to grab my prepared bags, and I could hear the loud voices erupting from the dining room, blame, refusals, inquiries. But for once, I wasn't there to watch the family arguments. I was now creating my own narrative. Grandma Rose's apartment above the cafe was compact, but it was filled with sunlight. It was ideal for an artist. I spent the first 3 days setting up my easel near the big window, putting my paints in order and formulating my response. Not revenge, I told myself, fairness. My phone continuously vibrated with texts and calls from my family. I dismissed them all except for Grandma Rose, who sent one simple message. "They're trying to fix things. Your father is asking questions." Good, I thought, let him do it. On the 4th day, someone knocked on my door. Marcus was in the hallway with a curious and slightly cautious look on his face. "Your grandmother said I might be here," he said. "She can be very insistent." I grinned, thinking about Grandma Rose. She is. "She also thought I might be interested in seeing your fresh work." He paused. "If you're okay with that." I moved to the side to allow him inside. "I'm working on something new," I said. "Something intimate." The canvases were set up throughout the apartment, studies and sketches for what would be my main piece for the gala. Marcus looked at each one, and his expression became more focused as he looked at them. I finally heard him say, "They're intense." He added, unfiltered, genuine. Then he pivoted to look at me. Annie, what happened? You were gone for months, and when I tried to reach out about the exhibition. I didn't get your messages, I responded. They were blocked, just like the invitation, like every single chance I had to be seen. As things made sense, his puzzled look disappeared. Your family. Mostly my mom and Sophia. I gave him the folder containing copies of the proof I'd collected. They've been steadily trying to erase me for years. Marcus looked through the papers and his face fell. I can't even find the words. I can, I replied, gesturing toward the largest painting which I was still working on. I'm titling it Brushed from the Canvas. The artwork showed a family photo, but there was a ghostly figure being erased, brush by brush, while the rest of the family smiled, pretending nothing was wrong. It was brutally honest. You're going to include this in the exhibition? He questioned. Along with the others, a whole series on family deceit and manipulation. I held his stare. Unless you've changed your mind about showing my art. Changed my mind? Marcus looked genuinely stunned. Annie, this is precisely why I wanted to collaborate with you in the first place. You have an incredible ability to capture emotional truth on canvas. He paused. But are you ready for what will happen? Your family will see these. That's the point, I told him. For the next 3 weeks, I was incredibly focused, like never before. During the daytime, I painted, finally letting all my bottled-up feelings flow onto the canvas. Once night fell, I carefully organized my findings, meticulously documenting how I'd been systematically erased. I also started reaching out to the people who could support me. Marcus connected me with Rebecca Turner, a journalist who wrote about mind control and manipulation. A lawyer who was a friend of my Grandma Rose's offered advice on my financial rights related to a trust fund that I'd just found out about. My family started to get more frantic about contacting me. My dad left messages begging me to just call him back. Elizabeth texted me, confused about what was happening. My mom left 3 messages, each one angrier than the one before, eventually making her assistant make a call to talk about family issues. Sophia texted just once, "You have no idea what you're doing." She was mistaken. I knew precisely what I was doing. The Grandview Hotel's ballroom sparkled that night, filled with crystal and silver at the charity gala. The wealthy of Boston moved around in formal wear, carrying champagne and ready to donate to a good cause and buy some art. I found myself in a small room with Marcus, observing my mother from a sliver of a view through the doorway. She was truly in her zone, the star of her social circle, using her hands as she chatted with the head of the Arts Foundation. Sophia was close by, chic in a blue silk dress, performing her supportive role flawlessly. My father, however, was standing stiffly near the bar, glancing at his watch now and then. Elizabeth hadn't decided to show up, it seemed. All set? Marcus inquired, as he focused the lights on my artwork. I straightened the front of my simple black dress. It was tasteful, chic, and totally unlike the colorful outfits my mother always wanted me to wear. I am. The silent auction was laid out along the walls of the ballroom. My collection was situated in the perfect spot, near the entrance, impossible to overlook. Beside each painting was a small card that described what inspired it, plus photocopies of the proof that drove each creation. I walked into the ballroom precisely as my mother began speaking into the microphone. She was the chairwoman of the event. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the annual Arts Foundation Charity Gala, she commenced, her voice like liquid honey. This year's theme, Family Legacy, is very special to me. I wasn't really listening to what she was saying. I was moving along the perimeter of everyone. The crowd had already begun checking out the auction items, including the paintings that I created. An older woman picked up one of the evidence cards. I saw her expression change as she read it. Because family is where we get our sense of right and wrong, my mother was saying, where we learn about standing by each other. The situation was almost too ironic. I stood right where my mother could see me as she wrapped up her speech. It took her a second to find me. She wasn't expecting me to be there. When our eyes met, her practiced smile wavered momentarily before she regained it. Now, please have a good evening and bid what you can, she concluded, walking away from the microphone while people applauded. I didn't go up to her just yet. Instead, I watched her go over to Sophia, and they started talking intensely, heads close together. I saw my father notice the small group that had gathered around my paintings. Even from that distance, I could tell he was confused. And I bided my time. It didn't take long. A wave of whispers went through the ballroom as more people examined my artwork and the proof that went with it. My mother was stopped 3 times by people she knew, and they all looked confused, but eventually she made her way to where my paintings were on display. The moment she noticed the main painting, I could feel the air leave my lungs. It was a family portrait, but my likeness was fading away piece by piece while the rest of them appeared completely happy, unaffected by the fact that I was being erased. "What's the meaning of this?" She nearly spat out, her controlled demeanor starting to crumble. "It's called brushed from the canvas," I said, keeping my voice level. I figured the meaning was pretty clear. Sophia showed up beside her, her face white as she took in the artwork and the accompanying cards that were displayed. "You can't do this to us." "I already have, actually." My dad forced his way through the gathering crowd, his face devoid of color as he picked up one of the exhibit cards, a copy of my mother's altered Christmas letter. "Is this the truth?" he asked, looking back and forth between me and my mother. "Did you really conceal Annie's scholarship from me, from her own daughter?" "Charles, this isn't the right time," my mother started to say. "Did you or didn't you?" he demanded, his voice getting louder. The onlookers around us had gone quiet, watching the family problems play out with the intense focus of people who sensed a big scandal was brewing. "It was all a simple mistake," my mother insisted, her smile looking forced. "Annie's just mixed up." "I'm not mistaken," I announced, making sure everyone could hear. "I have the proof, years' worth of it, all carefully documented by you." I pointed toward the exhibition, where each painting was accompanied by dated, signed documentation. There were the financial records showing the misdirection of my trust fund. There were the intercepted letters from the art school. There were the family photos where I'd been cut out or placed in a way that I could easily be removed. I couldn't help but feel Sophia's words were just a performance. She didn't sound very sure of herself. Marcus spoke up, moving towards me, and confirmed, "I know for a fact that Annie's invitation to last year's Emerging Artists exhibition was indeed sent, but she never replied. I spoke to the family, and they kept saying she wasn't interested." Rebecca Turner also joined in, positioning herself next to me, and added, "Plus, I've got copies of the acceptance letter from San Francisco. I also have verification from the scholarship people that she never officially turned the offer down. It just went unanswered." My mother's face lost all its color and quickly turned red with fury. Her tone was low and dangerous as she stated, "This is a family secret, and it should stay private." "You made it public," I retorted. "Every time you pretended our family was something it wasn't, every time you acted like I didn't exist." I motioned towards the artwork. "I'm just setting the story straight." Silence then fell, only to be broken by the distinct sound of Grandma Rose's cane as she walked through the crowd. "It's time we recognized the truth about what's been happening here," she stated, even though her voice was weak. "The deception, the holding back, the harm." "Mother, please," my mother pleaded, reaching out to touch her arm. "You're unwell." Grandma Rose recoiled from me. "I'm fine, really. Good enough, in fact, to have been keeping track of your actions for ages." She faced my dad. "Charles, the storage room holds everything. There are financial documents, letters, proof of how they've been managing the family story. It's time you took a look." My father seemed completely broken, his usual self-assurance gone as he glanced back and forth between his wife and his daughters. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "What made you do this?" My mother didn't respond. Instead, she turned her gaze towards me, her eyes filled with a chilling anger. "Do you think this gives you some kind of control, exposing our private lives to the world, making us all look foolish just to get noticed?" "No," I said. "What makes me strong is that I refuse to be silenced any longer." Then the floodgates opened. The guests started whispering loudly, and quite a few were openly snapping pictures of the exhibit. Rebecca was busy tapping notes into her phone already. Marcus stood beside me, protecting me as my mother understood how badly her carefully constructed public persona had been damaged. "This isn't over," Sophia said, her voice trembling with fury. "You're right," I agreed. "We're just getting started." The consequences were dramatic and came fast. Rebecca's article, called Brushed from the Canvas, How a Family Systematically Erased Their Daughter, was published in the Boston Globe's Sunday paper. By the following Monday, it had been picked up by big news organizations all across the country. By Tuesday, the family's law firm was getting calls from journalists asking for comments about the story's financial details. The opening night at Marcus's gallery was packed with more people than he expected. Within a week, every piece I had created was purchased, and the most important one went to a collector who focused on art about familial pain. Dad left the house and checked into a hotel. There he called me. We talked for 5 hours, and although the conversation didn't actually fix anything, it did open a path towards some kind of healing in the future. Elizabeth showed up at my place with a bag and asked if she could crash, just until things get better. We talked all night as she described things she witnessed but was always too young, too scared to ever challenge. Mom sent me a formal cease and desist letter through her lawyer, demanding I cease making damaging claims about our family. So, with the money I earned from selling my paintings, I hired my own attorney to deliver copies of all the supporting proof to her legal office. Sophia retreated to the family's Vermont vacation house, her carefully crafted public persona now damaged by our connection. And I just kept painting. I painted every single day. 3 months post-exhibition, I got a big envelope from the San Francisco Institute of Fine Arts. I was accepted for the fall semester, with information about a scholarship covering all the costs. They called me, Marcus told me when I showed him the letter. They asked if you were the same Annie Parker from the Brushed from the Canvas show. Apparently, the dean is a collector of art. As I touched the raised lettering on the stationery, a feeling of potential blossoming inside me washed over me. I remember thinking to myself, I truly didn't think this was going to happen. He had stated confidently, "You'll do well." He went on to say, "Your art is starting to get some real notice." And he was right. The show had been shown in 3 different cities, and I had been asked to create works for 2 really important collections. My bank account, which used to be practically bare, now had enough in it for all my school expenses, a place to live, materials, and even some extra. The very last part of getting my life back took place on a Sunday afternoon, 4 months after the night of the big party. I went to my folks' house, which was now my mother's, knowing she would be at church, making sure things looked right. Grandma Rose answered the door for me, holding a key. She asked, "Are you certain about this?" I just replied with a nod, carrying my newest piece, which was covered with a cloth. I have to do this, I thought to myself. The storage room was exactly as I'd left it a few months back. The box was still sitting on the shelf, just where I'd found it. I leaned my painting against the wall and then opened the box for a final time. In there were the same albums, the same proof of my being systematically erased. But now they held no control over me. I shut the lid and put a sealed envelope on top. It had a detailed account of the trust fund tampering inside, prepared by my lawyer, along with a notice that I wouldn't be taking any further action, as long as the remaining money was moved into my account in 30 days. Next, I took the painting off its wrapping and put it on the wall, facing the shelves. The painting was a self-portrait, not the ghost slowly fatting away on the family's art piece, but me, the creator, holding the paint brush. Behind me, my family, now blurry and not as prominent, were just barely visible. My face was the focus, bright and resolute, looking straight at the person looking at the painting. I named it Reclaimed. "It's perfect," Grandma Rose declared from the doorway. "She'll need to see it every time she's here." I took one last look at my painting. "I won't be here when she sees it." "That's right," Grandma said. "You'll be too occupied with constructing your fresh start." We left the place together, Grandma Rose using my arm for support instead of her cane. She would be moving with me to San Francisco, a long overdue adventure, as she put it. Driving off, I looked in the rearview mirror at the house that I'd never truly belonged in. I didn't feel victorious or resentful, just a deep sense of freedom. They'd tried to remove me from the scene, to slowly get rid of me until I was completely gone. Instead, they had showed me how to create my own artwork,